Philly got their title. What's the next step? They got 2 championships in the last 6-7 years. Can they be the new Chiefs or the new Patriots? They're definitely built for it. We'll talk about it today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh, man, it's Friday, and it is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. As always, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location. Whether you're looking or listening, make sure you don't miss an episode of Locked On NFL. And today's episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Shout out to the everydayers that join us here, and thank you for being a part of the show. Part of the show that we use the help of local experts, people from around the National Football League that know it like no one else. And today we have Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. Man, he's so busy all the time. I always say one of the founders of Locked On NFL, and we appreciate him for that. And just an all-around good dude from the Peacock and Williamson podcast. Matty, I hope everything is going good, man. We ready to get into some football.
I'm ready. Let's go, man. It looks like we're through like the first tidal wave of free agency and some moves here and there, but draft season and pro days, and there's always something to talk about, right?
Yeah, man, and I'm glad you mentioned free agency because the Eagles, the champions. Usually when you're the champs, you don't have to do a whole bunch. It's all about retention and all about guys retiring, trying to make sure you have guys in development, and a situation where you just reach out and touch and grab some pass rushers. You grab guys that are at the end of their career that want to win championships, and it seems like that's exactly the strategy of Howie Roseman. We're going to hear from Locked On Eagles. And then here's the thing we're going to talk about. Lou DiBiase is going to hit us up with what they've been doing in free agency. We're going to talk about whether or not they can be the type of team to maintain the kind of consistency that has allowed other teams to be called a dynasty. Here we are, Lou DiBiase from Locked On Eagles.
He still wants to go for upside in the free agent pool. He wants to, of course, be disciplined, and he knows he has one of the highest payrolls in the history of the NFL at one position on offense. And then at the same time, he knows the defense, there's stars coming up as well that have to get paid. But he's not just saying, I'm going to punt on the offseason. I'm not going to bring anybody in. The way to do both, to be cheap, like to thrift shop in free agency, but at the same time, still try to add difference makers in a Super Bowl run of 2025, is by doing what he's doing this year. It's by going into the market of former top picks, first, second round players with legitimate physical tools that made them an early day one or day two selection, that their market is not good. I don't want to say it's dead, but it's at its lowest it's been since they were in the NFL. Try to find those players that want to build up their value to bank on themselves.
Sounds like Louis just described Mekhi Becton. That's exactly who it sounds like he just described a little bit without all the high pick, Zach Bond. If anybody can do this, it is Howie Roseman. What do you think about what they've done in free agency? And then give me the chances they have to be considered a team that is a viable threat to make a nice little run here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. And player development is somewhat of a lost art in the league. I mean, there's just not as much practice time as there used to be. When you get to the season, you're really just worried about how do I beat the next opponent as opposed to working on fundamentals or developing a backup guard or a fourth string safety or whatever. Now, this is very ambitious. I mean, to throw around Chiefs, Patriots, Belichick, Brady, Mahomes, Reed, this is rarefied air. But I don't think it's insane because I love how the organization is structured from ownership to GM to what now looks like a good coaching staff that I'm sure will get pillaged over the years. And, you know, we know that their free agents to be will always get a little more on the open market because they're Super Bowl champs. But to your point, and as he mentioned, like the Patriots used to do, guys maybe at the end of their career that don't have a ring might come play for less, or the former first-round pick that just hasn't quite found his way might want to come there to get back on track. And I'm a Hurts fan more than I have been, but I wouldn't say he's Brady or Mahomes either. But the way they've structured things, they don't need him to be QB1 in the entire league. Plus, Hurts has played his best games at the most important times, too. And I think there's something to be said for that mental makeup and toughness and intelligence and emotional IQ and all that stuff, too. I'm open to it, but boy, we're sailing in some pretty rough waters here, you know.
We are, and that's what our boat is built for, to sail into those waters. But hear me out with this. Normally, and we'll talk about the 49ers later, where you see teams do this with a rookie deal with the quarterback, and then it kind of changes once you have to start paying people. They did it with their quarterback, not on a rookie deal, but look at all the guys on defense that are there with a rookie deal. And something they have now that they haven't had the last few years is this. And this is really, really unfortunate. It kind of reminds me of Dallas when Jimmy and Norv and Wannstedt and Butch Davis, they all left. They were able to win another title, and the best coach on their staff, in my opinion, was Hudson Hawk. The best coach on Philadelphia's staff is two guys. It's Jeff Stoutland, right? Mm-hmm. And now it's Vic Fangio. The thing about Fangio, and this is the thing that makes it's almost like he's like Dick LeBeau. You ain't got to worry about nobody taking him and making him a head coach at this stage of his career. Probably ain't going to happen. So now you're going to get that coaching stability on your offensive line and your entire defense, and you can basically turn that baby over to him and just walk away, right? And you got all of those young guys on a rookie deal. This is why I'm so excited about the prospect that if you look back at the Patriots and you look back at the Chiefs, Andy Reid and Belichick, notwithstanding, because, you know, as much as we mess with Sirianni, we got to give him credit, but he's not those guys. I think this is the best team to win their first Super Bowl out of all three of those teams I just mentioned.
I tend to agree. I mean, they look very, very strong where they're at now. And of course, like the Chiefs, like the Patriots, they're going to be picking late in every round, and that's harder to find blue chip talent. And I always looked at like those Patriot teams, or frankly, even my Steeler teams that were not nearly as good, but you couldn't get offensive tackles. You know, like when you're picking 25 and above every year, you can't get offensive tackles. But they got Jordan Mailata in the 7th round. You know what I mean? Like, well, is that just striking lightning strikes twice? I mean, I do trust their O-line coach to get more out of anyone than anybody out there. But what happens when Lane Johnson retires and you can't draft one in the top 8, you know, the no-brainer Jonathan Ogden type? I love that O-line coach is one of their biggest strengths, though.
Yeah, I do too. And the thing is, I probably said that when they lost Jason Peters, and I think I might have said it when they lost Jason Kelce.
I definitely did with Kelce.
And guess what? Bang! There you go. They drafted a kid on day 2, and now he's standing there. And even when he's not there, they just move Landon Dickerson over. It's just like they just got so much right stuff going for him. Mm-hmm. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop hugging and kissing on the Eagles. And now we're going to point to another team that we thought we might have been saying this about. That is the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to try to figure out what the hell has happened to them and their prospects, and they had this while they had a rookie quarterback. We'll do all of that and more here as we continue on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent is very, very important. If you need help with marketing a campaign, Upwork can connect you with freelance experts who deliver incredible results. That is so, so important, guys, to know how to connect people and get things done, and Upwork has that capability. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's show, as you heard at the very top, is also sponsored by our friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. These surprise insights are something else, man. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery alone. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code, I'll spell it for you, LOCKEDON NFL. That is Locked On NFL for half off your first year. All right, got my man Matt Williamson here rolling along. We all up in everybody's business like we are in the barbershop, talking about what they did and did not do in free agency. So now we got to figure out the mess in the Bay. Your buddy Brian Peacock and Crockett, they do these podcasts, man, and I can only imagine as a Jaguar fan. Look, I'm into grief management. I am an expert at it, and it is by accident. It's just like that's all I do after the games and on Mondays is try to pull these people back out of football purgatory. The 49ers have not been there. They have been the team that's been rivaling Philadelphia this whole time. But Matt, as I look at this, they've lost Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks on the offensive line, Talanoa Hufanga, and Charvarius Ward. Now, they do have two very, very good players in, I believe it's Mufasa as well as Green out of Florida State, and that's why they could afford to do that. But Dre Greenlaw, Javon Hargrave, Deebo Samuel, all of these dudes that are now gone, and they haven't done a lot to upgrade and bring guys in, and now they got to figure out how they're going to pay their quarterback. I tell you what, let's listen to the Peacock and not the Peacock and Williamson. So let's listen to Peacock and Crocker from Locked On 49ers talking about what they've done, a little bit of what they've done in free agency and how they're going to get back to where they're supposed to be.
And kind of before the break there, we talked about how a little bit of a raw deal for Mac Jones, because it's not his fault that he was over-evaluated and people were forcing him into the conversation at pick number 3, because it made for because, you know, people like us who were evaluating were like, yeah, no, it can't be Mac Jones at number 3. And so it kind of, people started hating Mac Jones. Like, oh, what? Like 49ers fans don't really like Mac Jones very much. I hope Mac Jones understands that he was like the villain in that draft because nobody wanted to draft him hardly. And so now, I mean, and so it's going to be interesting to see.
Real quick, a lot of that conversation that you said touched on a little bit, but it was about drafting him at 3 as opposed to drafting him at all.
Period,
if you would have been talking about Mac Jones, top of the second round, like you said, like an Andy Dalton type pick.
Why did I play that? Oh, because what could have been, right? They're sitting there at number 3, right in the middle of their Super Bowl run. And they weren't at 3, they was like 15, and they traded everything up for Trey Lance. And guess what happened? Oh, it did not work. The fact that they got a quarterback in the same round, in the 7th round, and he was Mr. Irrelevant, saved their behinds. So they made up for that a little bit, but I know they missed all of those draft picks, and now a lot of these people are leaving, and they can't add anything. I think right now, as we stand here today, Matt, they're one of the worst teams in the NFC.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. We could do a whole podcast on it because, I mean, 1 year ago or leading into last year, like when training camp opened, they had the best odds to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, you know, and rightfully so. I mean, they were coming off a powerhouse type season. They got stars everywhere, and the season couldn't have went worse for them in terms of injuries and McCaffrey and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They had a lot of bad luck, and that happens. I mean, and the fact that they're eating their vegetables so much this offseason as opposed to adding some cake or donuts to the party, it seems like they're punting on 3rd down as opposed to 4th, doesn't it? Like,
yep.
Are they eating their vegetables a season too early? You know, I mean, they are losing a ton of guys, and they are a ton of future comp picks coming their way, which will bear fruit in no time here. But and I do realize that you listed a lot of those dudes, and I don't think any of them are shocks to them. It's not like, oh man, we really wanted to keep Hufanga because they did have somebody behind him, etc. But they didn't bring anything in. They're really thin at a lot of positions. Is paying Purdy the right thing to do? We were even asked on our mailbag show with Peacock yesterday, like, what if the Giants offered you substantial picks for Purdy? And he's like, oh, I'd take it in a heartbeat, and just really reshuffle the thing. But your best guys are old now too. McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Warner's a year older, Kittle. It's an interesting build, and I don't think I approve. I think I'm much more of an eat your vegetable offseason guy. But this season, I think I would have went for the cake and pies and tried to win this thing and run it back because there aren't many opportunities. And one thing I just want people to know, and I'm not implying that he's a bad coach, but Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of the 49ers for 8 years. I think people would be shocked that half of those seasons, 4 out of 8 years, his team has won 6 games or fewer. Like, it's either great and they're Super Bowl contenders, or it's 6 wins or less. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, man, it's wild, man. And that safety I was talking about, his name is Kamara. That's the kid out of Wake Forest. And I need to remember that because my son told me in the draft that he came out, he said he's going to be a dog. And I was like, box safety. Turns out my son was right. So the little kiddo actually does know a little bit about it. This is just shocking to me, man, because they survived trading up for a quarterback that didn't work. A lot of people have picked the quarterback early and it didn't work, but you didn't give up 3 first-round picks to come up and get a guy.
Sure.
John Lynch got a major mulligan for doing that foolishness because Brock Purdy turned out to be so good and they were challenging Philadelphia. I just go back to the game where Philly was, they didn't have their quarterback, right? Do you remember the game, I think it was the championship game, where San Francisco went into Philly and beat them senseless, dog? Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking like that was 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And it seems like it was 10 years ago because of where both of these teams are right now. And the irony is we're sitting there having a conversation, actually talking about both of those clubs. There may be another team, though, that has an awful lot to say in the NFC. We're going to talk about Washington, and especially with Philadelphia. We're going to actually get to that, though, in just a second. We're also going to talk about a surprise team from the AFC West that's making some surprise moves, bringing back an old guy and going back and getting somebody from their past. Jim Harbaugh sure knows how to shake stuff up. We'll discuss him and more here in just a second on Locked On NFL.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's get to it. We're going to talk about Washington in just a second. I need to get to the Chargers, man, because the Chargers won more games last year than people thought that they would win. And what you saw was it wasn't just all personnel, that Brandon Staley and his way of doing things really was one of the things that was holding them back. They go get a very, very good coach who we've all seen do this before in Jim Harbaugh. He gets there. He keeps it simple. It looks old school. It's like it's boring. But guess what? They won 11 games in the AFC, and nobody thought that they would even do that last year. Made an appearance in the playoffs, obviously weren't good enough. They've added some old talent back, and they made sure that they kept one guy. We'll listen here to Drogi from Locked On Chargers.
Just mere hours before the legal tampering period begins, the Chargers bring back one of their key defenders from one of the best defenses in the NFL. This is David Drogemeyer of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and Khalil Mack has re-signed with the Chargers on a 1-year, $18 million contract. That deal is fully guaranteed, and I have absolutely no problems with this. He was an integral member of one of the best defenses in the NFL last year, a player that still plays with tremendous strength, a lot of effort. He barely misses any time. Hopefully, this is the beginning of bringing back a lot more of these key pieces and adding on. The Chargers have a lot of money to spend, and it just so happens that they just brought back their second internal free agent. But for more on this deal and for more on the Chargers, please check out the Locked On Chargers podcast, your team every day.
All right, so here's what they've done since then.
Real quick, Wig.
Go.
He couldn't pull over for those 30 seconds.
Man,
he's flying down the highway recording the video. I mean,
I don't know how he did it. I don't know how drunk he did it, man. I was scared for him there, man. I almost thought that was live. I was about to call him and say, "Dude, pull over, man." Right? But he had to get that news out. But look, here's what they've done since then. Mike Williams has come back home, a jump ball receiver, big guy. He's probably going to be their wide receiver 3 because I think they're going to draft somebody. They got Najee Harris, who, according to what I'm looking at on NFL.com, says Jim Harbaugh has had a crush on him since he was a running back in high school. That doesn't surprise me. Moved on from Joey Bosa, Poona Ford, Christian Fulton. Here's what they did in the last couple of weeks. They tripled down on size on that offensive line. They got James, the center, out of Las Vegas, and then they signed Big Mekhi Becton, and they're going to stick him right next to Joe Alt and see if he can continue to do that. It sounds like somebody's trying to ground and pound people to death and then use Joe Herbert late in games to go over the top.
Yeah, and so talk about eating your vegetables. Harbaugh gets hired and walks into an awful cap situation. He had a quarterback, but he walks into an awful cap situation. Then they're letting Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and those guys go, and the only thing they did in free agency a year ago is added a blocking tight end, which is very Harbaugh-esque, to be honest with you. And this year, they entered free agency with the second most cap money behind the Patriots. And I was pretty underwhelmed. I thought they might be the DK Metcalf team, or, you know what I mean? Like, give me a couple bigger ticket items. But I do love bringing Mac back, and I do think they realize that this is a slow build, even though we won a lot of games last year because we have a really good quarterback and a really good coach, frankly. And I love the interior O-line moves they just made. So, again, Peacock and I did an episode yesterday about we're only 8 days into the league year. I mean, guys, these rosters aren't set. Some of these guys are slowly putting pieces together, and I think the Chargers are a good example. They didn't go crazy on the first wave of free agency, but that doesn't mean that they're not improving in a Harbaugh-like manner.
It doesn't. And I'm going to tell you what, watch out for, there's a lot of veterans, there are a lot of players, and you know this, they're sitting there, they don't even want to get signed right now. They're going to sit there and wait after the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Jadeveon Clowney has done this forever, right? Any and everybody that is considered a fringe starter, watch out for them. Who's the defensive?
Some of these teams sitting on cap space or just going to be like,
yeah,
go on over.
Or you want to trade somebody and you want to save a little cap hit. You know, you got a little dead cap, but you want to save that salary. That is going to be the first destination. 1, it's in Los Angeles. 2, it's for a team that won a bunch of games, that has a quarterback. And you know how veterans think. Who's that dude? Like a guy like Zadarius Smith. He'll sit there and he'll go, let me see. He'll give you 17 games. They're not going to mortgage their future. It's going to continue to be a slow build. I do think, though, he pivots a little bit in the draft, and I think he goes after serious playmakers. I'm telling you, man, where they're picking, you better watch Egbuka. You better watch Luther Burden III. I would not be surprised that if Ashton Jeanty is still sitting there and he's close, that he, boom, goes up and he gets that running back, a bell cow identifier, and now – people who didn't like Najee Harris's signing because it's only 1 year, they'll love it with the fact that those two guys are back there together, and you'll really have thunder and lightning. I'm telling you, man, I don't trust him because I do trust him, but if I'm an opponent, I don't because it looks like he's slow playing it. He's smiling. He's saying all of these things, and guess what? He is building that thing to be able to beat your brains out every single weekend, and I'm telling you, he just might get it done. All right, Washington. Here's the team that I can't help but talk about all the time. They made a signing I didn't like, considering they had a whole bunch of cap space. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to let them talk. They actually interviewed him on Locked On Commanders. It's Javon Kinlaw. I don't like it, but then when you look at the structure of the deal, David told me it's not what you think it is. Listen to Javon Kinlaw talk to my man David Harrison.
Well, I grew up in Northeast D.C., so I'm a real Skin fan, point blank, period. When I was growing up, Trent Williams was on the team and Jordan Reed, and then I got to be teammates with them guys my rookie year. For me to be able to be on this team now is a full circle moment for me. And I know a lot about the transformation, man. It was in the blink of an eye. It's like you go from zero to hero, you know what I mean? And that's all I'm about, you know? That's kind of my life. And I can't wait to thrive with these guys, man. I feel so blessed, and I'm so happy to be here. Shoot, my whole family here. So yeah, they somewhere right now, but definitely I'm blessed and highly favored to be here. Went through hell and hot water to get here, and I'm glad that I'm here.
Now, I can identify with that. I spent a lot of my youth and my early adulthood running the streets of Washington, D.C. So I understand how it feels good to go back home. And he probably really endeared himself to some people, and maybe didn't when he referred to them with their old name. But we'll digress from that. It's a one-year deal. There are coaches that can motivate players. I remember Daryl Gardner back in the day. Lord, and I am aging myself. He came out of Baylor. Everybody thought he was a head coach, and Jimmy Johnson got the absolute best out of Daryl Gardner. He reminds me of that. Does the light come on for him, and can he get with Johnny Newton and Daron Payne and kind of solidify that run defense? If they can do that and get more possessions for Jaden Daniels, Washington will be a dangerous, dangerous team.
Yeah, they're a super interesting team. Frankly, I probably would have just rolled with Jonathan Allen as opposed to moving to Tillery. And this was one of the more perplexing moves, but we don't need to break it down 100%. But I do think there is value to it's personal to him. This is his hometown. This is his home team. I mean, there is something to that. And he's very, very talented, and maybe they can develop him for sure. I think they're here to stay, but I have seen a lot of times where teams like this that outkick their coverage in year one start to run before they can walk a little bit. You know what I mean? And maybe think they're a little closer than they are, and they're trading draft picks, and it could go off the rails. You know, I mean, I love Ertz and Eckler and Wagner and these old dudes, but they're old, you know, and you're counting on some, you know, foundational dudes or a lot of snaps from that type of player. And the quarterback is going to alleviate a lot of that, but Houston kind of fell into this a year ago too, where they really outkicked their coverage with a great young quarterback and thought they were a little closer than maybe they were.
I think sometimes what happens too, when you get a bunch of young guys that turn out to be your leaders, I think you got to be very, very careful with the players that you go and bring in that are veterans. Like Deebo Samuel has a huge personality, right?
Sure.
Now, Laramie Tunsil, I actually know him personally. I knew him in high school. He played basketball on an AAU team I was affiliated with. He's a quiet dude. But the thing that you have to wonder is, does the name match current day production from those two guys? I think they're really, really taking a chance that some veterans are going to be who they always were, and they're taking a chance that a former high pick is going to be something he's never shown us he is. So I do think having a guy like Bobby Wagner is going to make a big difference. I do think people really love playing for that coach. I just got to see it, man. I got to see it on the field because the Rams have gotten better. Philly, we talked about them.
Sure.
And Dallas, you never know. Dallas beat Washington when they play them because it's just a rivalry. So you never really know how it's going to turn out. And Detroit hasn't gone anywhere, and neither has Green Bay. Tampa is also a very formidable team who probably should have beat Washington if they don't fumble the ball and mess up a snap late in the game. So I'm going to look forward. They're going to be one of the interesting teams we watch.
No doubt.
And like you said, they could turn out to be just like Houston. Any parting shots on any of that stuff?
I don't think. I mean, again, I'm rooting for him. I love the coach and quarterback situation, and they got the Daniel Snyder stink out of the building in a hurry. That was a job number one. But it's hard to sustain success in this league. You know, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, that stink you're talking about was like a portable at Woodstock. That thing was awful, man. I'm telling you. And they did that in 1 year. That's the biggest thing, other than Jaden, maybe even more so than Jaden Daniels and the way they onboarded him. I really do think that one of the biggest things that they did was change the entire culture and feeling of the building and the organization. And I think that goes a long way. Make sure now when you start listening for prospects and watching prospects, if you think the 49ers are going to be drafting people, listen to the Locked On NFL podcast with Damian Parsons and Coach Keith Sanchez, because they are absolute draftniks. I told you my man Matt's a scout, but Matt will tell you the draft ain't really his thing. You know what I'm saying? It's more team building. I'm telling you, those two guys break it down like you can't get it anywhere else. So make sure you tap into that location and make it your second listen each and every day. Locked On NFL is your first listen. Matt Williamson will be back here with me next Friday like always. We want y'all to have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and thanks for joining us and spending some time with us here today on Locked On NFL.